Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Well, to America now. Now, remember how a few days ago the White House was still saying that no special counsel was needed to investigate links between Russia and the Trump campaign? Well, now there is one. The Justice Department has appointed Robert Mueller, a former director of the FBI. Democrats and Republicans welcomed it. President Trump, not so much. Surprised by the appointment, he called it the single greatest witch hunt of a politician in American history. Our Washington correspondent Kylie Morris reports.
Please, against the wall, please. I need room.
Back against the wall. Move aside. Move aside.
When it comes to writing the history of President Donald Trump, this man is now guaranteed his own chapter. The previously unknown prosecutor, Rod Rosenstein, who the White House made a fall guy for the sacking of James Comey, yesterday pulled the rug from under the Oval Office. He chose to do what the president's opponents most wanted. Appoint special counsel to investigate what Donald Trump dismissively calls the Russia thing. And the special counsel he chose?
Director, if you would please rise.
All-round stand-up guy Robert Mueller. A spotless reputation, no axe to grind, and America's second longest-serving FBI director. Shortly after the appointment, the White House issued a sanguine statement attributed to the president, saying, "A thorough investigation will confirm what we already know. There was no collusion between my campaign and any foreign entity. I look forward to this matter concluding quickly." But this morning, we found out what the president actually thinks, namely, this is the single greatest witch hunt of a politician in American history. Perhaps he was angered by the report from Reuters in which an anonymous official confirmed at least 18 contacts between his campaign team and Russia. Or he'd seen the Time cover, transforming his home and the symbol of American power into the Kremlin. But supporters of the president say there is one sense in which the appointment of a special counsel helps him.
I think on all sides there should be a level of confidence that a competent, professional, full job will be done, and let the chips fall where they may.
Well, yeah, it's always nice to have less drama.
Certainly Paul Ryan, Speaker of the House, spoke with a sense of relief today.
The appointment of the special counsel, I think, helps assure people that they're going to go do their jobs independently and thoroughly, which is what we've called for all along. And so I think it was perfectly appropriate to do that.
But it's tough to spin this into politics as usual when it's all so, well, swampy. And it gets murkier by the hour. The latest?
Can we ask you briefly about Russia?
Remember Mike Flynn, the national security advisor who had to resign? Sources quoted by the New York Times say Flynn told the campaign he was under federal investigation weeks before the inauguration, but they appointed him anyway. The truth was he was moonlighting but hadn't registered as a lobbyist for the Turkish president who visited Washington this week. Mike Pence, the vice president, insists he didn't know until months later, but he was the head of the transition team at the time. Flynn prompted another flurry around Washington today when it appeared he might refuse to hand over key documents to the Senate.
And that's not a surprise to the committee, but we'll figure out on General Flynn what the next step, if any, is.
As for the president, he's taking some distance. He begins his first major foreign trip tomorrow, his first destination, Saudi Arabia. There are bold hopes from his team for a reset, but in fact, in Trump world, just a respite would be a welcome change.
Kylie Morris reporting. Well, joining me now is the criminal lawyer and former professor at Harvard Law School, Alan Dershowitz. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. What difference do you think the appointment of special counsel makes? Does it make impeachment any more likely?
No, I think it makes no difference. I think it's largely window dressing. Remember that most of the complaints against the Trump administration have nothing to do with criminal conduct. For example, if his campaign collaborated with the Russians, that's wrong, but it's not criminal. If he leaked information to the Russians, which led the Russians to be able to develop sources and methods, that's wrong, but it's not criminal. If he fired, as he did, the director of the FBI, that's not criminal. If he asked the director of the FBI to let it go when it came to Flynn, that's not criminal. The only criminal conduct that they're going to find is perhaps against Flynn, that's a possibility, and more likely against the former national security officer in the current one that leaked to the Washington Post classified material that about what Trump did in the Oval Office. So the irony is there's a special prosecutor appointed to get Trump, essentially, and Trump will not be a subject or a target of this because he committed no actual criminal conduct, and the people who will be prosecuted and go to jail will be two intelligence officers who leaked classified material and maybe General Flynn. This is not the way to get to the truth. If you want to get to the truth, you appoint an independent fact-finding commission that has subpoena power. Remember, everything the special counsel does is behind closed doors. Grand juries operate in secrecy. You can't leak or disclose the testimony. The people who are called as witnesses don't have lawyers there. It's the Star Chamber brought to America. Thank you very much, Great Britain. But the grand jury is not the appropriate vehicle for informing the American public what may have gone wrong with the Trump administration. So I think this is much ado about nothing.
I mean, of course, there is the law and then there's politics. And when it comes to the whole question of impeachment, it's as much or if more about politics. So, I mean, when we look back at history, I mean, we saw what Kenneth Starr did with the Clinton administration. I mean, this does become an unpredictable beast, doesn't it? I mean, how long he goes on, where he takes it, what he looks into.
And a beast is a perfect example. The special counsel is Captain Ahab, and his target is the white whale, Moby Dick. When you give a prosecutor one job, get that person. It reminds me of what Lavrenti Beria, the head of the notorious Soviet KGB, once told Stalin. He said, "Show me the man and I'll find you the crime." When you target somebody and you have prosecutors looking to find criminal conduct, it's much more likely they'll find it even when it's not there. So I am not, as a civil libertarian who cares deeply about due process and the Constitution, I'm not applauding the appointment of this special prosecutor, even though I know him. Bob Mueller is a terrific guy. I knew him when he was the U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts. You couldn't get a better person. It's the process and the mechanism that I'm critical of, and I don't think it will lead the American public to know what really went on and what they're really interested in knowing. Was there coordination with the Russians? Was there leaking? All of those kinds of things are not within the jurisdiction of the special counsel.
I mean, Trump says this is the biggest witch hunt in American history. I mean, if you think back to McCarthyism and, well, let's go to Salem. I mean, where do you put it in history?
Oh, it's not even close. For example, the attacks on President Clinton for Monica Lewinsky was a greater intrusion into privacy. You know, this is like a 4 on a scale of 10. And it's very appropriate for the media to serve as a check and balance, particularly when both houses of Congress are in the hands of the Republican, the executive in the hands of the Republican. You need an outside system of checks and balances, and I think the media is doing a pretty good job. And remember, the media in our country, like in yours, consists of left-wing media like The Nation, you have The Guardian, right-wing media like Fox, you have right-wing media, and centrist media like CNN. So I think it's not appropriate to complain about the witch hunt, and many of the problems that Trump has are self-induced. If he hadn't fired Comey, and if he hadn't tried to blame it on Rosenstein, Rosenstein would probably not have appointed a special counsel. In the end, I think Trump will benefit from the appointment of the special counsel because everything's done in secret. And in the end, he'll probably say either no indictments or indictment of somebody who's no longer in the administration. I predict here, and you can play it back a year from now, that there will be no indictments against any current member of the administration and not against Donald Trump.
Alan Dershowitz, come back in a year. Thanks very much.